Okay.
John Slattery from Mad Men. One question I want to ask you right off the bat, you're getting more and more into directing. You directed a couple of episodes this past season. Describe the differences for you in a week of preparation for directing as opposed to acting in an episode.
In the week leading up to shooting the episode, I will have seen... Well, you see one original production draft, and then you go through the tone meeting and the production meeting, and you location scout, and everything changes. So, the scene that takes place at a bar will take place in someone's, outside somewhere, or probably not with Mad Men, probably inside somewhere. But everything changes along the way, and one of the advantages of spending that week on the inside is that by the time you get to the set, you know the script backwards and frontwards. You've broken down every scene. You've cast the guest actors. You've scouted, as I said, the location. So, oftentimes the script you don't get that week preparation. You'll get the script sometimes 2 days before you start, or the day before you start. Or sometimes we'll do a table read and then get up from the table and go shoot one of those scenes. So. The great advantage is actually feeling like you know the scenes that much more thoroughly than you do when you're acting in them, and you can provide that insight to the actors, which is really helpful. All of us really appreciate anything that can help make the thought process more clear.
Well, you haven't been shooting for a while, John. I think season 5 is starting up soon. Do you miss playing Roger Sterling at all?
I do, yeah. I miss everybody as well. It's an amazing atmosphere to see that sort of, to see that group of writers, and Matthew Weiner in particular, churning out the stuff and connecting one dot after another, and watching all those designers and that crew and those directors and actors all sort of really come together in almost an instant. It really happens quickly, and arrive at this thing that we're all now pretty well equipped to do is an exciting place to be. It's an intense atmosphere in that short time.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing about Roger Sterling? What do you like best about him?
I would have to say his sense of humor. That's probably an obvious answer, but I'm not alone in marveling the Roger Sterling's ability to turn a phrase, to turn a moment into something more than that.
The foot in the door line might be the best one ever.
They put out that book that was a collection of quotes, and I was shocked. There were 130 pages of quotes, and some of which I had forgotten, some of which I didn't remember that I had said. So that's amazing in and of itself. Yeah.
John, we're a website that talks about awards generally, and with the Emmys coming up and you being a nominee a few times now, it's pretty likely that you'll be back at the ceremony come this September. And you normally have to pick your favourite episode, as you know quite well. Do you have any episode highlights from season 4?
I fell in love with episode 4. Was the first one I had ever directed, and they let me direct. And I didn't have that much to do acting-wise in it, but as far as an impression it left on me, that impression was pretty great. Just, you find yourself in moments, and there was a big scene towards the end where Peggy goes to this party, and she smokes pot with Joyce and her friends, and she sort of sees a world that she hadn't seen before. And then we shot the compliment outside, and it was the Washington Market. It was dressed to look like Washington Market. It was a big production shot, and then Dolly shot it. It was about 2 a.m, and I was just sort of looking around, all these people working incredibly hard to dress the set and get the shot before we had to wrap for the day, and thinking, how the hell did I get here? How is it that I've been fortunate enough to get this opportunity? So that would definitely be the high point for me of that season.
From an acting standpoint, in terms of submitting to a judging panel, maybe like we were thinking along the lines of maybe Chrysanthemum and the Sword, where you really go off on the Honda folks.
Yeah, I would agree. I was thinking there was one other episode, and now I can't remember which one.
We like Hands and Knees a lot too, where you find out Joan is pregnant, and you also lose the big account with.
That is actually probably the episode with the Japanese clients was, something that turns out to be as shocking to the audience. Isn't obviously as shocking to us because we're prepared and we're playing it and we're on the inside and knowing what's happening. Those scenes, the ones where Lee Garner Jr. tells me that he's going to move on and take the account from me, it's from a strictly performance point of view, trying to convey that shock and all those things that are required in that short amount of time in a public place, and then having to kind of go through the motions with everybody else and pretend this and hang up the phone sort of surreptitiously. And challenge-wise, as an actor, that was probably a greater challenge for me than some of the scenes with the Japanese clients, even though they weren't probably as shocking to the audience.
Yeah, totally. Well, look, actually, you're going to be all over the Emmys this year because you did a guest spot on 30 Rock, which was really well received. What was it like working on that set?
It's amazing to step in after you're so familiar with your own house, kind of. I mean, all the people. One of the reasons they let me direct the show is because I know the crew and I know all the people. You have an insider's knowledge of the process, and then you step into someone else's environment, and it's really sort of jarring. I mean, to see. And again, as good as all those people are, Tina Fey and Alec Baldwin and all those directors and those writers and that whole cast, it's an amazing. It was really daunting being in between. My first day was in between Tina and Alec, and they know each other and work so well together. And I'm sort of playing this out there character, not really sure if it works. I kind of took it at the last minute. I think they probably had someone else in mind, and made that whoever that was fell out. So. I was thinking, and I think maybe that same day I was in a diaper outside in a park in Queens thinking, what the fuck have I just done? Maybe this was a really bad idea. But, you sort of hope that through the editorial process they'll come up with something. And the short answer was a lot of fun. Initially it was a little scary because they're unbelievably talented. I mean, watching Alec Baldwin come up with that performance, which looks as smooth as anything, is really sort of, he adjusts it as it goes, and they roll, and then he stops, and he's like talking to the writers while he's doing it, and then moving me, and you just sort of stand there waiting to say your line with your mouth hanging open, watching him kind of put it together. It's pretty amazing.
Well, next time you're directing Mad Men and you're casting guest stars, Alec would fit perfectly well in your world.
Yeah, we should be so lucky, yeah.
Did you like the final version when you saw it of the 30 Rock episode?
I did. I got a kick out of it. I come from New England, so I threw that accent in there, and then I got a kick out of the fact that a lot of people thought, well, that's a ridiculous Boston accent. And I was like, well, where the hell do you come from? That's where I actually come from. I don't know what you think is a ridiculous Boston accent.
Yeah. Well, most people obviously know you now as Roger Sterling, but you've been on TV for years. Like, you've done some amazing guest work on Sex and the City and Ed. Have you got any highlights from way back in your career pre-Mad Men?
Lowlights, you mean? I've got a lot of lowlights. I was just looking at pictures of a series I did in Yugoslavia in 1987, when it was still Yugoslavia. Thinking, in Zagreb, Yugoslavia for 6 months with Fox, doing Dirty Dozen.
Wow.
That was fun, but it probably won't go down in his TV history as one of the great artistic moments.
Probably not.
Well, you work with your wife, Talia Balsam, on Mad Men occasionally. She's now your ex-wife to Roger Sterling. What's that like? What's that experience like been working with her on occasion?
She's right here. She could probably tell you herself. It's fantastic. I wish, there was a time when there was a scene, how television works, as you probably know. It changes. I mean, something is intended for a season, and then the writers will see, or the producers will see a scene with two actors and go, "Wow, that works out well. What if we put those two together?" And I think the Joan and Roger storyline benefited from Christina Hendricks and I getting along and working so well in the beginning, in the early stages of the show, that sort of continued and flourished. on the flip side, there was a scene with Talia's character Mona and Roger on the way home in an early episode from a dinner with Don and Betty. And the two cars were driving in separate directions home from the dinner and talking as people do about, what about those two? We were laughing about how ridiculously good looking they are, and didn't we see them on the top of our wedding cake? And it's just a really interesting dynamic between the two characters, but they didn't have time to shoot the scene. So it never got aired, and as a result, I wonder sometimes whether the character kind of got shortchanged, because they could have seen how well the two of us sort of interacted and maybe used her character more. So I really love working with Talia, and you have this emotional shorthand. You don't have to make up as much context. Oftentimes you meet somebody and it's your wife of 25 years, you jump into bed or whatever, and you've met someone for 5 minutes. So it really is. You know, the first season I was in the hospital and having had a heart attack, and she comes in, and it's a lot easier to generate that emotion in familiar surroundings.
Yeah, absolutely. John, thank you so much for your time today. We're really looking forward to seeing you again on our screens for Season 5. It's long overdue, and we wish you all the best for the Emmys this summer. We're sure that it's going to do very well yet again.
Thanks for having me.